Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 268, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And Dracologist.
And man, can I say it better than I ever used to.
That was spectacular.
It was real, and it was spectacular.
Wow, that's a 25, 30-year callback.
But we should call up Terry Hatcher and see how my reading was. But anyway, we have another wonderful show here for you, and Lotus actually came up with this one, this subject matter, but he was saying that we should talk about games that had delayed DLC to keep you enthralled with the game and keep you into the game. Most DLC...
To clarify, not DLC that was going to come out sooner, but whoops, correct, we had to delay it, but rather it just came out like way later to get you playing again.
Yeah. So, for instance, when a game just, all of a sudden has some DLC, a year later after it came out.
Yeah.
And you didn't know about it.
What was that, Dracologist?
Even more horse armor.
Horse armor?
Even more horse armor.
It's just entirely horse armor.
Considering that all the updates and HD remakes of Skyrim is basically DLC. We just have to buy the entire game for it again and again and again.
I saw a meme recently which was like a time traveler, but I don't know what year I'm in. Hey you, random guy on the street, what's the last game that Bethesda released? And he goes, Skyrim. It's like, shit, I have no idea what year it is.
But, speaking of, I'm sure you had some games specifically in mind, Lotus, when you thought of this.
Although, before I go in, there's actually one thing we forgot to mention on Reactive Consciousness.
Oh.
It's not DLC, but... it certainly took its time to come out. No More Heroes 3 came out, and people seem to like it.
Yeah, I mentioned that it was coming out the previous week, but I didn't mention the reaction to it.
Yeah, there are only really two things I know about the game. One of which I'm not going to go into because it's kind of a wow moment, but the other that just makes me laugh is, do you remember that annoying scorpion gathering minigame for the first game?
Yeah, that everybody complained about.
Yeah, and you know how in the second game everything was a Sprite pixely based 2D minigame, except they brought back the Scorpion minigame?
Yes, just to troll you.
Apparently it's back in 3.
Oh, I'm down for it, baby.
That just cracks me up. It's annoying, but I'm not even mad.
No, at this point you've earned it.
Yeah. But regarding actually being on topic, there are 3 games that I know and love, all of which had DLC drop in relative rapid succession, within a month of each other. So I was like, oh no, what do I play first? So one of them was the game Crosscode, which I just love. That was a game that I had backed on Indiegogo years ago, and it's an incredibly, passionately made, clearly labor of love, Sprite-based, sort of pixely looking game with very vibrant backgrounds, gorgeous soundtrack, characters you care about. Now it had DLC drop actually way back in February, but that was only for PC. It was confirmed to come for consoles, but we just didn't know when it was going to be. And it was this month. It finally came and hit consoles. So I had the chance to play it. So it's a sort of epilogue thing that properly concludes the story, because the way the base game ends, there's the conflict was resolved, but there's room for more, and when you go to this pathway, it just tells you this is where the DLC is going to be when it comes out. So then now you can go through it and see where that would take you for a proper complete conclusion to the story. So I've been playing that and absolutely loving it. And it's just fantastic. I mean, I always like to get games when they have their complete editions out, but I backed Crosscode, so obviously I was going to have to wait on that one. But man, it felt good to go back into it. I had to get used to playing it again. That's another reason I like playing games all at once, is I don't have to relearn them.
Yeah, I
But
have the same problem. Is like I kind of don't want to go back after after I've already beaten it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I still have not played Bioshock Burial at Sea. I just can't bring myself to go back to a game I beat like 6 years ago or whatever. But Crosscode was freaking great, and I'm happy I did go back to it. And somewhat similarly, Ghost of Tsushima. I've already told you, I think including on the podcast, what a gorgeous game that is. And
yeah, I really want to play it because of how much you raved about it.
well,
Honestly.
now's your chance, because it's Island of Iki DLC came out. So like the story from the base game was certainly resolved, but it's like you stop the Mongol invasion, but you know Mongolia still exists. So Mongols were attacking a different island. And they're like, well, if they conquer that island, it won't be long before they try making their way over here. They just have like a different leader who's not a Khan. And you're like, oh god damn it. So you have like, I better just go over to that island then. So it's a new isolated location, because if you look at the map of Tsushima, you cover the whole thing. So like, would they spring up again in Tsushima somewhere? I guess they could have, but no, different island. So it's an isolated area, and you have to beat the DLC if you want to get back to the main story, because they're not going to trap you there forever. What if you didn't beat the main story yet? So you can do the DLC, and it's a whole other story, and it turns out that your character has a history with that island, which was never addressed in the base game because there was really no reason for it to be. So we get a new aspect of his backstory and what it means to be like a samurai, especially on an island where they were the aggressors in a conflict. Because like he'd always learned, like, well, we were helping the people on the islands, and the people on the islands were like, well, maybe that was your intent, but holy shit, a lot of people got killed. So there's that whole back and forth throughout a lot of the discussion of the story. So it's quite interesting. And the third thing, which I believe I've mentioned on the podcast before, was Mortal Shell, a game I very much enjoyed. It's a short Souls-like. That's a game you can beat far more quickly than something like Dark Souls. It's supposed to be a more bite-sized experience, but it had a DLC come out also, I think, sometime last month, which was just a whole roguelite alternate way to play the game. Like, you're not doing the base game as far as I'm aware, but it's just a whole alternate way of playing the game in general, which is really exciting.
I need to pick this game up. It looks good.
Yeah, it is good, and I look forward to hacking my way into it. I've completed Crosscode, I've completed Ghost of Tsushima, except for the multiplayer stuff because I don't have PS Plus. So I'm currently playing Neo, so there is that. But I look forward to getting back into Mortal Shell. Like, all three of these things, the DLC came out like over a year later. Mortal Shell maybe around a year later, but they're all spectacular experiences in their own right. They're all very different games that play very differently. Like, we're talking 2D, somewhat overhead, like platformer and just general RPG. We have Ghost of Tsushima, which is an open world game with RPG elements, and we have Mortal Shell, which is a Souls-like. So radically different games, but all of which have had amazing, ambitious DLC that genuinely makes it worth going back to them, even if you've played them already.
That's awesome. Well, the game that comes to my mind when I think of this is actually Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Breath of the Wild didn't have its DLC, its last bit of DLC until like much later, after it came out, and like I had already been done the game, so I never did any of the DLC because I had just played it to crap, and I was just like, I'm never, it was one of those things. It's just like I don't even know at what point in the game you can access that content, so I wasn't sure whether like. There's some DLC that, like, just lets you play it, and then there's some other DLC where you have to be a certain point in the game to play it, and...
Well, that's kind of it. Like, Crosscode, it's obviously branded as story mode, post-game DLC, so you'll just naturally go into it. It's just a new chapter. Ghost of Tsushima, there'll be a marker on the map. Go there if you dare. It's hard-level stuff. And Mortal Shell, you have to unlock it, but, like... that isn't really saying anything. It's just go to the first area of the game. Like, that's kind of it. And then once you talk to this person, you'll see it in the main menu. It's a nothing requirement. But, like, Dark Souls, you have to, like, figure out how to access the DLC.
Exactly. And that's always a thing with the Souls-likes, right? The Soulsborne games.
Yeah, like, Mortal Shell, like, you'll find out very, very quickly, but you still have to do it.
Yeah. Well, I with Breath of the Wild, I was just like, oh, man, I beat the crap out of that game. Like, I found all the shrines. I didn't, I obviously didn't get all the Korok seeds, but like, because
well, that whole side quest is just like a joke.
I think I saw like a meme for that. I don't exactly know what happened, but like an absolute like obtuse thing happened, and like you found a Korok seed.
Yeah, well, Korok, when you get them all, you get like a pile of crap.
Yeah, like a golden shit, like literally.
Yeah. So the entire time you weren't collecting seeds, you were actually like getting little poops.
Yes.
But
yeah, there's not even a reward. Like in Ocarina of Time, you can completely fill your wallet whenever you talk to the guy, but like there's no reason for you to ever do that by that point in the game. So you're like, But the Korok seed just makes a point of like, you didn't have to do this.
Yeah, eventually you stop getting the upgrades in which you were collecting them for, so you tap out on that, and there are a lot more left after that.
Yeah, there's like hundreds.
Yeah, they're literally all over the place in the game. Like if you're looking around and you see something slightly off, it's more than likely a Korok seed opportunity.
Okay.
That's what they want you to notice. It's just like you notice something that is off slightly, and so it turns out it's probably one of the Koroks. But so I never felt the need to collect those, and I had gotten all the things that I wanted in the game. So all the sets of armor that I felt like I wanted, that kind of thing. So
sure,
I never went back and did some, got the motorcycle or whatever, and did like the challenges and all that other stuff. And I you know what, I genuinely want to. I just haven't made myself go back, and because I play like so few games now that it like to go back to something that I already played is kind of like a little tough for me, because I'm like, I should be just playing the more Yakuza, you know what I mean? Or I should be playing No More Heroes 3, which, there hasn't been a full No More Heroes game since the Wii. So I mean, there was,
because like Travis Strikes Again is like a sort of side title, but No
exactly.
More Heroes 2 on the Wii.
Yeah, I never played Travis Strikes Again either, so
neither did I.
I needed to go back and play that at some point. I don't know whether I want to play that one first or not. I'm debating, but I still it's one of those things. But what other games would fall under this category?
And I think of two right now. One is
go for it.
One is Terraria, which had after like during this closing, like when the very last content was added, they added one DLC which was basically a Steam version of a mod loader, which allows you to basically access and download and use any mods far more comfortably than you have to like dig
that game was heavily modded like from the beginning. I remember. Like,
I don't know. I never used mods, but there are like big mods for it, like that adds a lot of content, and I never touched it, but maybe I should one day. The other game I think was basically Doom's Sigil. I don't know if that counts.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's kind of a mod, but it's basically a whole other episode of Doom, like 20 years later.
It's not a mod. It's basically a DLC if you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a wide file. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a new mini campaign for sure.
Yeah. And I should also say, by the way, this doesn't necessarily I don't know if this falls into like releasing it way later, but just any game at all with like seasons of DLC, like especially fighting games.
Fighting games are like that these days. Yeah, especially like.
I mean, they'll release stuff relatively quickly, but they keep you coming back.
Yeah, but that's without any hiatus, I think.
It's more of a steady release rather than like one big thing later.
This isn't paid content, but I've also been thinking about what they did with ARMS. Like they added a lot more content to that game just because people were buying it and liked it and enjoyed it. So that's like one of the instances where like they actually just paid people back for buying it. Like they were like, oh, we better continue to support this game and add new content because like people are really enjoying it.
Yeah, and even regarding free DLC, I think Blasphemous is going to be adding something soon if they haven't already.
Yeah, I heard about that. They added Bloodstain stuff recently, but but they're adding more, right?
Blasphemous. Yeah, I think a new, like the last DLC, and if I read their trailer properly, and they kind of want to make a new, like a sequel, like Blasphemous 2, because like
fair enough. Yeah.
Like the game,
I would love to see it.
Like the game ends with the Roman numeral 2 appearing in this background.
Hollow Knight did that too. They added a lot more content later on, and I don't think people were expecting it.
They had like 3 things.
Yeah, and they were going to add the other characters' campaign, and then they made that into the sequel.
I feel like there's going to be an entirely different game apparently. I don't know how much different the gameplay will be.
Well, considering her playstyle is a lot different. I mean, she has that that needle and thread kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Which is a lot different than the Hollow Knight. The Hollow Knight is just like short melee stuff for the most part.
I think it's either called main hero or Vessel. I think the character.
He is the Hollow Knight as well, right? Isn't he?
I'm not sure, but what I'm thinking, like I want to finish that game, but at some point the game kind of stopped being fun to me. And
I gave up with the challenges on the third DLC. The challenges in the third
that
DLC
was horseshit.
Are fucking ridiculous.
I beat the game, but I didn't bother with that.
I did everything but that.
I stopped with the what was that character called, the White Weeper, or I don't think, the one character that asks you to go through the entire map without getting hit.
Yeah, no, that's fucked up.
I think I actually did that, but that sucked.
I did the flower thing too. But
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the flower that was a tough challenge.
I did everything except for the God's Home DLC because I knew I wasn't doing that, and like I wanted to platinum the game, but I knew I wasn't going to do the God Home DLC or God Seeker or God Killer, whatever the hell it was called. Yeah. So I was actually trying the Path of Pain. But once I realized I wasn't going to platinum the game, I'm like, I don't need to do Path of Pain either.
Well, Path of Pain, like the payoff is just doing it, really. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a trophy for it, but I was like, fuck it.
Yeah, that is probably the most difficult thing I think I've ever done in a video game is the Path of Pain. Honestly.
I would have to think about what that is for me. That'd be a good CC topic.
Yeah, but Path of Pain is. I tried that for I think 3 days straight before and I spent hours
it's some
doing
bullshit.
It. Yeah, it was really
I think there is when I saw a speedrun, I think they mentioned there's an actual developer intended shortcut in the Path of Pain, which is kind of nice. But
cool.
Even so,
I might have even did that, but like I still got my ass kicked.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing I should say, by the way, I never did fight the head of the Grim Troop because I went for the other ending.
Oh, okay.
So like, which involved not fighting him. So I would have liked to have fought him. Though.
See, I wanted to fight him.
He's in the Boss Rush DLC, but fuck that DLC.
I consider fighting all the bosses like part of what makes the game fun.
I mean, like, yeah. I agree, but the other ending had like a happier ending where you break the cycle of the Grim Troop. So I was like, I'll just do that. I wanted to fight the boss though.
I didn't even recognize that was an option. Wow.
Yeah, because if you beat the head of the Grim Troop, he's like, "Good job, buddy!" Like, and you continue the cycle, and he's like, "You're awesome." And then they go off, and they'll be back again at some later time, like not in the game, but in the lore of the game. But if you choose to just break the cycle and not do the ceremony, then the troop just disappears, and the accordion playing guy suddenly appears looking slightly different at the bench in the main area, and he has no memory. He's like, "Hey guys, this seems like a pretty cool place to hang out," and you're like, "Hooray!" Kind of happy ending.
Well, maybe trauma isn't taking over that kind of thing.
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that guy lost his memory, but the Grim Troop cycle of madness is over.
Yeah.
And you could still fight Boss Grim in the Godseeker DLC, where he's one of the millions of bosses. I think it's like 42 fucking bosses.
He's also one of the hardest bosses in the game too.
Well, he's so hard that the final boss of the game is the only one to have like a title card before you fight it.
Yeah.
Boss Grim, because he's a DLC character, Boss Grim also has a title card, so you know he's serious.
Yeah. No, I needed some help on that. Old Man Stompy beat him for me. Actually,
Yeah.
it was actually he came over, and I was just like, I'm really having trouble with this, and then Old Man Stompy like to the rescue. But geez,
There you go.
yeah. Any other ones? How about Age of Empires 2 getting like fucking DLC like what like
Oh, yeah, like 20 years
year?
later.
2 years 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's incredible.
And didn't one of the Postal games also have something like that?
Yeah, Postal 2 I think got an update recently. How about
But, I mean, lots of games with story DLC, like they don't come out 5 minutes later. Like a lot of times with games now, like Resident Evil 7 had a season thing where like there's going to be DLC later, you'll know it, but like the Souls games had DLC a while later. I just happened to buy the complete editions, but like it's not usually day one DLC. So you usually wait, and then it's like, oh, there's a whole other thing.
I mean, we're forgetting Binding of Isaac entirely. Binding
that
of
had
Isaac.
constant DLC.
Yeah, but like that was never planned, really. Like he had never.
Like your Repentance came out a while later. Although actually, one thing, original Flash game Binding of Isaac, way later got DLC that was like.
Really? DLC?
Yeah, it was like hard mode where like if you beat the game, like, because I don't think the original Binding of Isaac had a normal or a hard mode. It was like Rebirth that did. So original I think got like a hard mode that just beat the game on hard mode with each character, and there's a trophy for each.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome though. I think that's great.
It's tough to go back, by the way, once you've been playing Rebirth.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
It's just so much crazy items that are very helpful and interesting mechanics. And
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
characters.
mean, I'd enter the Gudgeons like that too, right? In a similar way. The hybrid guns and all that kind of stuff get to be a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally into that.
Well, speaking of which, Gungeon itself had, I think it was free each time, but the DLC updates.
Yeah, I was gonna mention Shovel Knight, but like that was all planned DLC, I guess.
Well, even so, though, it came out way later. Like Plague Knight and King Knight
like
came
10,
out way
10
later.
years, right?
Treasure Trove was way late. Like this was like a 3DS and Wii U title.
Yeah, no, the original was 3DS and Wii U. Yeah, you're right.
I think it was just 3DS at first.
It was 3DS, and then they put it on the Wii, I think, right? Wasn't it?
I don't think it was on the Wii.
No, it was the Wii U. You're right.
It was the Wii U, and then later it was PS4, Xbox
PS4.
One, and then it was Switch. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
on Steam now, right? Is it on Steam?
It's been on Steam.
Okay.
Like
For almost the whole time. Yeah.
Almost the whole time. Yeah. They updated it to mirror the Xbox version though, so it has the Battletoads content. Which is
that
pretty
makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah. So
Speaking of which, by the way, one thing I forgot to mention, I might have mentioned this many podcasts ago, but Crosscode happens to have a, and this isn't even a DLC thing, but it has a mission called, or like a subquest called, I forgot what it was called, but I think it was called like Console Wars or something like that, because there are multiple versions of Crosscode, right? Like, it was released on the Xbox, it was released on the PlayStation, it was released on the Switch, and it was released on PC. And each of them has a mission unique to the platform that it's on. And you can beat it just fine, but it's like, it's actually unique. Like, it's a different location, a different boss. But then it says, like, there's a secret area you could find. If you know what the 4 keys are, here's one of them. And it turns out that each platform has its own key, so they wanted the internet to talk to each other and share the location of the keys. So it was like a low-level, like, ARG. So once you know where they were, you could find them in any platform of the game and unlock this hidden area that's just kind of like a hooray you did it kind of place. It's kind of cute.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Any others that you guys wanted to talk about before we move on to fan stuff?
Osra's Wrath. I don't remember how late it was that it was released, but like the fucking ending of the game.
Oh yeah.
Osra's Wrath.
Oh yes. Not to mention, by the way, the Street Fighter stuff, because that stuff was awesome.
Oh yeah.
Where you fight Akuma, that shit was bananas.
I love it.
You just launch.
Fighting Ryu was a lot of fun too.
What was that, Dracologist?
Just when Ryu gets launched into space.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
you finally beat Ryu. Like, that was a hard fight. Akuma just one-hit KOs, and you're like, oh no.
Just launches him. I love that game so much.
Someone once told me that like Akuma is like, oh, like he's such a badass. He killed like these X and Y. It's like, those people are not dead. Your claims for like murdering people are kinda not true.
Yeah.
I want to get an excuse to play those games again. I know they're playable on Xbox, the Xbox One series stuff. So that game really should have a PC version too, just so like people.
Yeah,
can
I'm surprised
play
it doesn't.
Yeah, it was during that era, during that PS3 360 era, in which you never could tell if you were going to get a PC version or whether it would even be
remember
fucking
how
good.
long it took to move Bayonetta and Vanquish to PC?
Yeah, and they turned out really well. I don't even
mean the pack, I just mean bringing them at all.
Yeah, they turned out really well once they got put on PC.
Yeah.
They ran really freaking well, but geez, there are plenty of games from that era. I mean, the like Shadows of the Damned and Lollipop Chainsaw are still not on PC.
Well, Lollipop Chainsaw is fucking licensing hell. But then again, if they got the Yakuza games on PC, then Lollipop Chainsaw, why not?
I mean, I think Lollipop Chainsaw sold decently enough to warrant it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and now James Gunn gave it a shout out, so like, who knows? Maybe we'll see it again. I don't know.
I would even just like to see a sequel, and maybe like with the original game with additional content. Like a remaster with extra content or something like that on all the platforms. That'd be cool.
Give me another genre of music boss to fight.
Yeah, I love Lollipop Chainsaw. I thought that's one of his like more mainstream games that
it feels the most like a video game you could like just like anyone could play, because Killer 7 is kind of like tough to get into. Shadows of the Damned feels pretty mainstream, like as far as Resident Evil 5 controls, but it's still not as like run and gunny. Like, it's not as just smooth as Lollipop Chainsaw is.
Yeah, I think Lollipop Chainsaw is just like probably the most approachable of his games, other than No More Heroes. No More Heroes is kind of like has become his.
It's like a cult hit.
His namesake kind of.
Yeah.
But Lollipop Chainsaw is just a good game that I think a lot of people would like, especially if we brought it into the modern era.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm not betting on it. But anyway, we should move on to fan stuff, though.
Yeah, so Fakafan had a couple of comments, one of which we kind of addressed in reactive. But yeah, seems that the OnlyFans situation evolved since the podcast, where I think they're going back on the decision. Yeah. I'm weirdly glad to see that Quake is getting a new life. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like I ever liked the game that much. It's just plain cool. That's kind of how I feel, honestly. I never really played Quake, but it's like, hey, Quake.
Nice
early 3D games really get shunned. Even the good ones, they get shunned typically for pixelated games, like pixelated games usually get a second shot, but like early 3D games, unless they're Square games tend to be like the one exception, or like Metal Gear, like tend to, you know, get locked to their platforms and never seen ever again. And that's really a big shame because there's some real gems from that era. I mean, like, I would love to see. I know this isn't a. Well, actually, the second game is a 3D, an early 3D game, but like the Tomba games, like why not? Re-release those or get those out there. I mean, there's plenty of stuff from the PlayStation era that like never got a second chance or a remaster or anything, and I think Quake is a bona fide classic at least. So like I hope they would pour some love into it, and they finally did. 9 Inch Nails and all, so that's good. Yeah. But I'm glad that like my PC version just updated and now I could play that version.
Yeah.
I already owned it, so it's pretty cool.
Yep. And Fakafan also says this was our D&D stories, where I had told the story of how I was wearing like a cloak that happened to work to bypass an obstacle. And he says, the story with the cloak to sneak by the skeletons reminded me of a very fortunate moment in my own game that happened. Back when I was playing the Barbarian, our party entered a room with 2 huge golems guarding it, and we quickly realized they would only react to us if we entered the room. So we devised a plan to take them on. We prepare our stuff, my guy gets an enlargement spell, etc., and I go in. Turns out they don't react to me at all. What we learned is that they would only react to smaller creatures as intruders, but since I was their size, they weren't programmed to do anything. They made clearing the room a lot easier. Yeah, fair enough. I'm using a little quirk like that. Living Corpse has 3 comments. One of them is simply, roll 20 to seduce the dragon.
My character could probably do it through persuasion.
Fucking bot name is terrible.
Yeah. The second one is, what was it with game developers putting sewer levels in the 90s and 2000s video games? Why were they so obsessed with playing in poo water, and why do they think gamers wanted to play down there? I'm sorry, but unless I'm given a hazmat suit, I'm not going down there, even if it does mean saving
I have a theory, but...
Industrial and grimy and very, very easy to model.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's you could have a black background and it would make sense, right? Well, you have Mario Brothers that were like blue collar workers, so they ended up being plumbers, so that made sense for them. But I think a lot of it was like Ninja Turtles imagery, like from that era was just so popular, so they added sewer levels, do a lot of things after that.
It just makes me think of though, like just ice levels. Every game's gonna have an ice level.
Yeah, it's usually just themed around, I think, different environments, and like a sewer is one that you can think of, like transitioning to, I guess.
Also, go ahead, Dracologist.
What I wanted to say, like what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles didn't say you, that sewers are very much like the brooding grounds of very, very poisonous sleazy fungi.
Yeah. But what I was going to mention, and this is a little later than the time period that Living Corpse mentioned, like the 2000s, but like I was going to say the PS3 and 360 era of gaming was pretty brown. There was a lot of that, like, like zombie movie, everything's brown or green, so it's like, that fits, I guess. What was that, Dracologist?
Quake palette.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I remember Yahtzee on Zero Punctuation was talking about old Quake. You go from a brown castle to a green church to another brown castle. It's like, yup.
What's your favorite? The brown castle, the blue castle, or the brown castle? Revenge of the Brown Castle.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want? And then Living Corpse's last comment is, there is a Resident Evil fan channel called Residents of Evil. They've hired Moonglint Studios to make an RE-inspired survival horror game called Vigil. Yes, bad camera angles and all. I don't think they're bad camera angles. It's just, it can be frustrating because they're fixed, so you can't see someone who's right in front of you if they're off camera. But the angles themselves are usually pretty good.
If you get... It's only bad if you aren't used to playing them. Let's just
I will say, though, if you leave the screen on the top right, for example... And then when the screen transitions, you're now like on the top left, you're facing a different direction. You're like, well, what the fuck? Like, that's annoying, but the way the screen looks is like the way it's supposed to. You don't have to worry about like, oh, I aimed the camera badly and I can't see. Like, you only see what you are supposed to see, which is kind of nice.
To be honest, like, everyone talks about Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and nobody mentions the old Alone in the Dark games.
It's because they're clunky.
Yeah, people only talk about Alone in the Dark as that game that inspired Resident Evil. Have you ever heard of Alone in the Dark? But like, I don't know how many people at this point like have experience actually playing them.
I went back and tried to play them, and it's hard.
I've played the New Nightmare. That's probably one of the more
I meant
playable
the
ones.
OG
OG.
game.
Even just looking at it, like you could just look at gameplay and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah. The combat in that.
You start without weapons and stuff, and you immediately attack. So basically, you have to like postpone attacks by pushing stuff in front of windows or trapdoors and stuff like that.
It's a clever idea, but it's super obnoxious.
Yeah.
That said, if I recall, you could fisticuff enemies.
Because it makes me think of that one level in Bethesda's Call of Cthulhu game where you're in the inn and you have to run away when everyone's chasing you. So you have to lock this door, you have to slide this shelf in front of the other door, and it's a really cool sequence if you know in advance everything you're supposed to do. But you don't, so you're going to die like 10 times. It's very irritating, but it's cool when you pull it off.
Dark Corners of the Earth?
Yes. Did I say something different? Yeah, Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners. Yeah, I just said Call of Cthulhu, but yes, Dark Corners of the Earth.
Yeah, Justice is it. Verify.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is a quite not that chase sequence is that's going to stop a few people from playing it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if it's like King's Quest, like if you know what the developers were thinking, then it's actually a really cool sequence, but you don't because you're not a psychic, so it's annoying.
Yeah.
And then our question for this week. This is our last question, by the way. Just want to throw that one out there. But Fakafan asks, do you have any favorite sprite animations in video games? Some of mine would include the funky dance of the merchants in Secret of Mana. I don't know that one. Or the little Clancer singing in Mischief Makers. Yeah, like the Clancer's doing anything in Mischief Makers is awesome.
Oh yeah. I tend to really like the cat robot singing in Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger?
I love that.
That's become enough of a meme where people tried putting a tune to it and singing the little lyrics he has.
Yeah, I like that one a lot because it's just fun and iconic. I really like that. I like anything with dancing in it generally. In Scott Pilgrim, the item shop keepers are the item the shopkeepers are always dancing and like
sure,
you know, bobbing up and down. I always like that.
Oh, you know what? I'll point out probably like 3 things. 2 of them are like respect, and one of them is just kind of silly. Respect is like almost everything in Suikoden 2. There are so many animations that are used like once just to add flavor to characters. Like they didn't have to animate that, but they did. And it's just like there's so much effort put into all the spread animations, some of which you'll never see. Like one of them involves doing Clive's side quest, which basically means getting to the end of the game in under 20 hours, which is very hard to do on a first playthrough. And if you could pull that off, you see unique animations between him and the person he's chasing. For another one with just respect, even though I've never actually played the game, I've seen it played all the way through. River City Girls, that game's gorgeous to look at anyway, but this must have been such a pain in the ass to do. But if you get the yo-yo, they have you like moving the yo-yo up and down, like using it as a yo-yo just while you're walking forward and stuff like that. So they had to painstakingly do the animation for that. Like that must have sucked, but it looks so good.
I love that.
And for the silly one, have either of you guys played Final Fantasy Mystic Quest?
Nope.
I did back in the day.
Alright, so Dracologist wouldn't know, but Vice, do you remember the animation? Like, sometimes they have comic relief, like, I don't know, like, when you
like
shrug.
Shrugs? Yeah.
But the shrug is, like, weird and awkward because like you don't move your shoulders, like you have your hands out, like I don't know, but to do the shrug, like your hands kind of like your fingers point up and then back down, so it's just like something that no one would do in real life. Like your arms are out and your hands go up and down, and it's like, well, I recognize that is a shrug, but it's just kind of silly looking.
It looks like someone's doing the lift the roof is a gesture, right?
The what gesture?
Lift the roof. Basketball players.
No, because his arms are still out horizontally. Like,
yeah,
his arms are out, kind of like the I don't know pose, but then like without moving his arms, like his hands are still out, like the fingers are flat, but then the fingers go up while the wrist doesn't move. So like he just kind of points up without moving his arms. It's a little weird looking. Like when you see it, you still know what it is, but you're like, a human wouldn't do that. It's just kind of funny.
Limitations.
It's like good enough.
I always now that I'm thinking about it, really love in a lot of these are Square, because like this is part of the reason why Square is so good at what they do is like, they're very charming. But with Super Mario RPG, I love it.
I was going to mention that one.
When they spin around and do okay. I mean, it comes with like a little. It comes with a little musical cue, but I love it. I
also like when somebody says something stupid and Mario just goes like poof, and just immediately with like no animation just falls on his face.
Oh, I have one. Here we go.
Are funny. Like those are characteristic like anime gestures, but it's nice.
In Mario and Luigi, there is a moment where Luigi gets hit and his shoe falls off, and that is like one of the funniest things I can ever. For some reason, losing a shoe when you get hit is one of the things that busts me up. Like every time I see
Three Stooges, like you get knocked out of your shoes.
Yeah, but like a shoe goes flying, and like it's
that is
really funny to me. I don't know why it's funny. It's just like I guess because you in your brain you see it as part of the person's body. So like when you see them lose it, you don't expect it.
Sure.
So I always find that very funny. Or somebody losing a sock is always really funny to me.
You know what's also really good, by the way, is the you've been changed into something, like a curse effect, or most death animations in any of the Metal Slug games. They're like weirdly very smooth.
Like when you turn into a fat person.
Yeah, or when you die by the acid, you just melt and you're like, oh god.
I think that there was a video about it, how that art style was done. Pixels fade from one another so it creates this smooth animation effect. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's very smooth looking. There's also like just rotoscoped stuff, like Prince of Persia, the old one, or like the fight in or like the fight in King's Quest 6, where like the final fight with the Wazir, like it looks like better than usual.
That reminds me, Andy getting killed by the grubs in Heart of Darkness has always been one of my favorites.
Oh god, yeah, that's brutal. Oh, you know what's also good is this isn't even like amazing looking sprite animation. It's just I'd never seen it done in a game before. But in the Capcom JoJo fighting game, when Chaka, the guy with the katana, he when he does a super move, he does like the anime thing where he like rushes forward and slashes like the whole screen, but like you see like whatever the background is, just like the upper half just slides to the right, and you're like, oh fuck, like he got like everything. It just looks amazing.
Well, I think we answered that pretty darn good. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff. I mean, you can go into Street Fighter stuff, like especially Alpha, where it gets like...
I would say like few of my favorites would be like, if I can recall from the thousands of games I played, like the Jazz Jackrabbit idle animations, especially
that's a good one.
Jazz Jackrabbit 2, like Spaz various little the idle animations are incredibly funny. Like when he just shoots off a flying saucer that comes by, or like that comes that little Disney princess effect, like that the little bird comes flying down on his finger, little chirps, and he eats it.
Nice.
Other
Actually, somewhat similarly. I know you said 2 games, but like regarding idle animations, I don't know how to pronounce it. Rystar for the Genesis.
Ristar, yeah.
Ristar. He has a different idle animation
It would
depending
be
on what level
Ristar
he's in.
in Japanese, I think.
Okay,
Ristar.
but he has a different idle
I,
animation depending on what level he's in, which is pretty great. So in the snow level, he makes a little snowman. Like, it's great.
I love that.
what was else? I think in the game Abuse that it's not even like idle animation, but it's just an effort that your character has, like, it's a sprite based character, but it has a 360 aim animation.
Oh.
Like like it's a 2D platforming game, but you aim with the mouse and your character is almost every direction. It has a very specific aiming animation, while
Okay.
while it's constantly bobbing up and down as, on its feet.
Oh,
Uh,
I should also regarding newer games. By the way, I should also mention I mentioned Crosscode earlier today with the DLC stuff, but its bosses tend to be huge, and it just looks really cool to see them coming in. Like that giant thing that's like a third of the screen is a sprite. It's crazy.
Two things one is, like, if you be talking about sprite-based animation, anything from Shantae is like absolute eye candy.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah,
Sure.
Like
Shantae
those,
is particularly smooth. Oh, speaking of smooth, by the way, specifically, oh, this is gonna make me mad. This is gonna make me mad. One of the fighters in Street Fighter 3, like Third Strike, what was her name? Like Elaine, Elena? Was it Elena?
is
Oh,
that
I
the
don't know.
Yeah,
character
Elena.
I don't know
has
Yeah,
Third Strike
the
as
one with
well.
the capoeira. She's like, even for that game, her animation's really smooth, and they brought that back in, I think it was Street Fighter
Is
4.
she the
Like,
one
she's
who has
smoother than
this?
all the other characters.
Is she the one who has this crazy, like rotating, stance? Like she's like
Yeah, yeah, she's the capoeira one with the dance animation, like Christy from Tekken.
And for last, for me to the last, it would be Diablo 1 and 2 with its bit grim, but the monsters' death animations are always very, very, like, the first few enemies just fell over and something, but the later enemies are die very, very violently, and it's not just as well animated, but like the combined with the sound design, it leaves an impact. Like when you kill
Yeah,
one
no,
of those.
I know what you mean. Like, there's similar stuff in it's a game called Morbid. It's like a 2D like pixel Souls like, and it's got some pretty ugly like monster and boss death animations that are very well done. Oh, one more silly thing, by the way, which I kind of forgot, was Donkey Kong Country 2 has this, which itself is an homage to Battletoads. But when a boss shows up, the characters jump and freeze in the air, and their jaws drop like a cartoon character, like a Chuck Jones cartoon character, and their eyes
I
bug
love that.
out. You know, like that wolf who's in love with the girl who's just like at the table, like whoa, like hubba hubba. They just had
But
that like like that face.
exactly,
It's great.
we literally call it the jaws drop down. It's literally called that someone goes slack jaw.
Oh, how
It's that.
appropriate. Yeah, and like Aladdin, the genie in Aladdin did that too, where his jaw
Yes.
like literally hits the floor.
Speaking of which, also a very well animated 2D game.
That's true. Yeah, Aladdin on the Genesis in particular. It was done by actual Disney animators.
I love that. Yeah, that was
Also,
really great.
the Mickey's like the Mickey games on the Super Nintendo. I don't know if they were done by Disney animators or not, but those are gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is a few old school anime. Oh, and various Cocktail Vision games also had very nice 2D animations. Very funny 2D animations. I'm
Oh,
rather fucker knows those games.
and
Oh well.
actually, by the way, one thing I would be remiss in neglecting to mention is before they went 3D, Guilty Gear like up through like the PS2 era and like Blaze Blue. That's like some of the most gorgeous spread animation around for a fighting game.
Fighting game sprite animations are always incredibly well made.
Yeah, those are so flashy. The Fist of North Star game is up there too, but Blaze Blue is just like that's one of the smoother ones.
Garou Mark of Wolves is my favorite.
That's also very gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I forgot to talk to mention probably the most gorgeously animated 2D pixelated game ever made. It's not a popular choice because the game itself is anemic. But if you go back and you look at it, you're like, oh my god, this game was freaking beautiful. King of Fighters 12.
Yes.
Yeah, King of Fighters 12 has the most detailed pixel art of any game I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's gorgeous look, and that was the one that didn't have and everyone's like, really?
Yeah, it was very anemic. They fixed it with 13, but they also smoothed out all the pixels in that game.
Yeah.
So it
I saw the premiere
the
of KOF 12 at like Otakon the year it came out.
The particular background that I'm thinking of is the stadium, which has
the crowd cheering.
Yeah, and the Zeppelin going around. Like it's not 3D at all. Like it's all pixels, and it's just like it even changes perspective as it's happening.
Oh, and you know what? WarioWare Shake It also has gorgeous 2D animation.
Yeah, I was gonna mention some WarioWare because there's a new one coming out very soon.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll bring up, and Dracologist happens to link this to me like today or yesterday or something, and I've seen it at your place, Vice, as well. But the arcade game Arabian Fight, which it's got weird scaling and everything, but the animation of the actual sprites is pretty good looking. But what really gets me is the way they have characters like
jumping
that look like they're cartoon animated, like leaping in from the foregrounds.
Yeah,
it just looks amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Basically, I even like smooth moving things. Like I like Jack in Streets of Rage 2, just like flicking that knife, man. I
just tossing it up and down.
Yeah, I just love that.
He's fun.
Yeah, so
and Shiva slides toward you and does his flame kick.
Marvel vs. Capcom's Wolverine with the way that he like sharpens his claws. I love that too.
Let's go, bub.
Yeah, I love that. I love anything like that, really.
Even the X-Men arcade game, like the Pyro running and jumping around, looks pretty smooth.
No one beats the Blob.
Pyro will turn you to toast. All right, fine.
All right. Well, we should wrap it up though.
Yep.
Because this show has just gone on too far long. Lotus and Dracologist. We gotta end it at some point.
Do
you think we should end it?
Up in a few hours.
Do you think we should end it now?
Why, sure.
Why, surely we'll end it. So that is the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who listened to me stall while I brought up the script that I repeat every single week. We want to thank our fans who contributed questions. We need more. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, and the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much anything. Just give me a heads up. Let me know who you know, how you know me, and all that.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in on conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
Skype, Steam, Discord, Dracologist.
Damn, boiling it right down.
Well, thanks everyone, and we will catch up with you next week on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Good evening.